Ahmed Wali Karzai, the brother of Afghanistan's President Hamid Karzai, has been paid by the CIA for the past 8 years, according to the New York Times this week. The newspaper claims that he provides bases for the agency and acts as a Taliban contact. Well, RT's Cedric Moon is in our Washington studio tonight with investigative journalist Gerald Posner, who's spoken to the Afghan accused of being a CIA agent. Cedric, what are the grounds for these allegations?
Well, Kevin, that's what we're going to talk about with Gerald Posner of the Daily Beast, which is an online news site here in the United States. He is out of Miami. He is talking with us via Skype. So, Mr. Posner, first of all, just unfettered access for you with the Karzai brothers.
Right. I mean, I've been dealing with them now for about a month, and originally it was because I was doing a story into whether one of them, Ahmed Karzai, who's one of the great warlords in the southern part of the country, was in fact the Pablo Escobar of Afghanistan. There are rumors for years now that he'd been heavily involved in heroin trafficking. And that's what I went after. I went after him, approached him on that, dealt with him. He denied it, of course. He said, you know, there's no firm accusations, no firm evidence here of anything. Talked to the U.S. ambassador and others. But then I also talked to his brother Mahmoud, who's become in a few years since his brother Hamid became president, one of the wealthiest people in a very poor country, around all the swirling allegations of corruption and backdoor dealing. So I've been dealing with these two very aggressive brothers for a while, and then today the New York Times broke the story that Ahmed, the supposed drug dealer, was also a CIA asset for the past 8 years. So I was back on the phone with them again, both of them adamantly denying it, attacking the Times vehemently.
Absolutely. Now, I did read the article by the New York Times today, and it lays a pretty convincing case, at least in my opinion, about this tie between the CIA and Ahmed Wali Karzai. And you're saying that Mr. Karzai is vehemently opposing this. I'm kind of reading his reasoning to it, too, and it doesn't sound like it doesn't really hold as much water as maybe the article. I mean, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. As a matter of fact, you know, James Risen's a well-respected foreign journalist. The piece that he wrote in the New York Times is, although it has a lot of anonymous sources, it's redundant sourcing. It has specifics in there. It talks about the Kandahar strike force and special forces renting property from Ahmed Karzai. And he denies it in a broad brush. He says it's false. It's the work of my enemies. The New York Times has a vendetta. Risen has a vendetta against us, and this is a conspiracy. He says one thing that I do believe, which is this is politically timed. I mean, few things happen in international politics with intelligence agencies leaking information to a major newspaper right before the presidential runoff in a country that is as crucial to you right now as Afghanistan, without political motivation being behind it. That I agree with. But I don't buy his denials. The one thing I do think that the CIA does, which they do very well, and I've dealt with intelligence communities on my work on 9/11. I did it with my book on the Saudis, which was out 4 years ago. They give the people that they pay, like a Karzai brother, plausible deniability. And that means that when they rent the property from him to put their special forces on them, it doesn't come with a check that says CIA from Langley, Virginia. Right. It comes from a front company. When they deal with him on other things and pay him for information for tribal leaders and other things, they aren't paying him from the CIA. It's always from another front company or a contractor that's doing work for the military. So he can probably swear under oath that he's never been paid by the CIA and say it with a straight face. But everybody does it with a wink and a nod.
Right. What you're saying is you have to get through several levels to get to the actual absolute truth of this whole situation. This situation, maybe several other situations involving the CIA. But this also poses quite the entanglement when it comes to the U.S.'s relationship with Afghanistan, especially with what's going on between the two countries right now.
No question about it. You hit a key point. I mean, we're talking about two different things happening. One is President Obama is now confronting the decision of whether to commit additional American troops to Afghanistan. In the wake of all of this are questions about fraud in the last election in which the Karzai brothers' brother, Hamid, won the presidential election among counts of fraud, including the fact that Ahmed Karzai, accused as a CIA asset today, is one of those who was also accused of having been involved in some of the ballot fraud, having produced tens of thousands of ballots that were phantom ballots. So this creates a political problem for President Obama. In addition, we're talking about Afghanistan, the country that produces 93% of the world's opium, in which American soldiers are starting to show a small uptick on addiction numbers for heroin. And you have the fact that one of the president's brothers is being accused of being involved in the opium trade and working for the CIA. Boy, I think it's a political time bomb for the country. For the Karzais.
Absolutely. You said earlier that you kind of think that the whole timing of this article is a little suspect here. But I will say, though, that Ahmed Wali Karzai's rap sheet, as you had mentioned, isn't exactly the cleanest. In fact, it's a pretty long rap sheet. So it's kind of hard to believe, at least from what I'm seeing, what he might be saying. And he doesn't exactly take on the contentions by that New York Times article point by point. He doesn't give any definitive, any sort of definitive evidence against why this is wrong.
He doesn't, but, here's the thing that's interesting about Ahmed Wali Karzai, which is he has his, what I call, lukewarm defenders at fairly high levels. Just the other day, Senator John Kerry, who happens to be visiting Afghanistan, was asked what he thought, if he thought there was evidence about Ahmed Wali Karzai being a dope dealer. And he said that when he asked for firm concrete, that he said the word he used was a smoking gun. He said, I asked intelligence, I asked the DEA for the smoking gun, and they were unable to produce one. And I spoke to the former ambassador to Afghanistan, as a matter of fact, who through 2006 said to me, Ronald Newman, when he had gone in to meet with Hamid Karzai,
Mr. Posner,
Karzai said,
Mr. Posner,
the evidence.
I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to have to wrap it up. Kevin, I'm going to throw it right back to you. It sounds like a tangled web here with this story.
It certainly does. And just reminding our viewers, of course, they can catch up with that, have their say as well on our YouTube page, also on our website, rt.com. OK, Cedric Moon talking to Gerald Posner there in Washington tonight. Thank you.